Hello. This week's topic is professional ethics codes and professional identity. And the information in this presentation are just a few additional thoughts I have on this topic. You already will have readings to do for this week, and this is just additional information. So we're going to cover the following topics. Why we have ethics codes, what is their nature, what is their purpose, and then we're going to look at a few different ethics codes that are part of the helping professions. We're going to talk a little bit about professional identity and how we develop that and what our moral responsibilities are as professionals. We're going to look at one of those moral responsibilities, which is self-care, and say that it is an ethical imperative as a member of the professions. So let's start with this question. Why do we have professional ethics codes? Well, there are many reasons. One is they help us to articulate the core values of our profession, not only for ourselves, but also so that the general public can be informed about what our professional accountability is. And so they also help to socialize new practitioners into the field. They help to contribute to our professional identity because they're the standards that all of us in the profession operate from. They provide a guideline for what good professional behavior is, and in doing so, they help to prevent harm to our clients. They are a way that we can assess when someone is acting unethically in our profession. And they just in general provide us with direction. So if you look at this person in the picture, they're on a road looking for the right direction to go. And so our professional ethics codes help them to figure out the right way to go, help us to solve ethical dilemmas. So these are the components of ethics codes. And they start with a basis of core values, the core values of the profession. And then they look at legal and regulatory components, as well as rules and regulations. Ethics codes also consist of evidence-based research on what is good practice in our profession. And all these things together provide us then with a process for how to solve ethical dilemmas. And we're going to be talking later in this course about the ethical decision-making process. But for now, we're just looking at what makes an ethics code. So let's start with core values. So ethics codes, as I said, are based on the core values of the profession. And if we look, for example, at the profession of social work, these are the core values of the profession, the guiding light of our profession, you might say. Service to others with a social justice slant to it. So we're looking at equality and equity for all people. Social work also espouses the dignity and worth of people and the importance of human relationships. And part of our work as helping professionals is to develop strong human relationships so that we can be of help to our clients. The other core values of this profession of social work are integrity, competence, and respect. And these core values come from the National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics. So ethical codes also address the core ethical standards of the profession. And these standards that are listed here are not from any particular helping profession. These are ones that are common across many helping professions. And they are generally organized by what our responsibilities as professionals are to our clients, to our colleagues, to our organizations that we work for, to other professionals, to the profession in general, and to society at large. So we are going to be talking about all these ethical standards over the next few weeks. Client self-determination and autonomy, the informed consent process, what we mean by professional competence, what are conflicts of interest and dual relationships and sexual relationships with clients, privacy and confidentiality issues, the issues around supervision, and then also non-discrimination and professionalism. So we also, if we looked at what are the different components of ethical codes, you notice that legal and regulatory issues are part of that. And so we want to look at what is the relationship between ethics codes and legal obligations. Well, they are closely related, but they are different. Legal obligations are part of criminal or civil rules that guide our society. And I think ethics are less black and white than legal obligations, and also kind of broader and more aspirational. So, as I said, they're closely related, but ethical obligations usually exceed our legal duties. And while penalties for legal infractions are generally mandated and more severe, ethical violations often come with professional and legal sanctions as well. And there are many areas where both ethical standards and legal duties intersect around confidentiality, around record keeping, about dual roles and exploitation, and about the limits of confidentiality and our duty to warn. So good ethical practice requires us to know and to be able to apply relevant laws, standards of care, clinical guidelines, and agency policies. All these things are very important, and the challenge comes when some of these conflict with each other. So here is a list of some of the ethics codes of the various helping professions. There is our own Human Services Code of Ethics, the Ethics of Human Services. The American Counseling Association has an ethics code. The Chemical Dependency Counselors Organization has an ethics code. As I mentioned, the NASW has a code of ethics. Marriage and family therapists do, psychologists do. And there are a lot of commonalities among these codes. There also are some differences, and one of your assignments in the coming weeks is going to be looking at 2 different codes and seeing where they're similar and different. Now I want to change tacks a little bit and talk a little bit more about professional identity, and we want to start with why it is that people become professional helpers. So we have kind of both the positive motivations that people have and what I like to call as the dark side. So positive motivations, and I know this from my own experience and also from reading your essays when you applied to the program. We often come to this profession because of life experiences we've had that have provided us with lessons to share. Either because in those hard experiences that we've had in our life, we've had a positive experience with another helping profession, or we just don't want anyone else to ever have to experience what we experience, and we think that we can help to make sure that doesn't happen. Or because we've experienced certain things, we feel like we can develop a greater rapport with others who've experienced them. So sometimes we can take our very own difficult struggles and they give us powerful lessons to offer to others. And because we want to give back and help other people's healings, this is a very positive motivation for going into the profession. We also are able to put our values into action, our values of compassion and service. And we also can use our work to help us gain better understanding of ourselves and healing. Though this should not be the major reason we're going into the profession, and that will take us over to the dark side in a moment. We also, hopefully in this profession, have a great deal of curiosity about others. And so this is a very important part of being a helping profession. Now the dark side of this is that we are using our helping to meet our own emotional needs. And our personal professional identities can get mixed up in the process. So sometimes we go into the helping process because we're lonely, or we'd like to be able to tell people what they can do to improve their lives, just like we did. Or we want to continue to focus on our own issues and healing through working with our clients. Or, being around people who are messed up make us feel better about ourselves. Or we can only feel good about ourselves when we're helping others. Or we feel sorry for people. So all these can be very problematic in working with others. And it's not that we don't all have some of this dark side. I think the trick is to be aware of what our motivations are and to be aware of when they're positive and when they need us to examine them. Um, I want to give an own personal example. In my own life, I spent much of my career working with people with HIV and AIDS. And in the early days of HIV, clients died. There was no viable treatment available for people, and the best you could do was help them to die with dignity. I had a lot of unresolved loss in my own life, and as you can imagine, working in that field exacerbated that, brought that up for me. I had to be very conscious of this. I had to seek consultation with my supervisor. I went into therapy. I had joined a support group. I really needed to make sure that my own unresolved loss issues became resolved and that I wasn't bringing my own loss into the work with clients and that I wasn't using my work with them to deal with my own issues. So this brings us to the issue about self-healing and self-care. And it is our ethical imperative as helping professions. We must do this. We must address our own woundedness in order to help others and not harm others. Your self is the tool that you use, the professional use of self, to care for your clients. So you need to make sure yourself is in good shape. Because continued exposure to suffering does take its toll. And to be effective in the long term in this profession, you need to practice self-care diligently in order to continue to work effectively with clients. Let's talk a little bit about resilience. Resilience is a process or set of tools that gives us the psychological strength to cope with and recover from trauma, tragedy, adversity, and significant sources of stress. Now, resilience can, if we're lucky, be something that we're born with, but it is also something that we can develop. We can work on behaviors, thoughts, and actions that can help us to be more resilient, to help us to deal with the never-ending trauma and sadness and struggles that our clients are experiencing. So these are just some ideas of how we can prevent burnout and foster resilience in ourselves, and they're called the 4 C's. And the first one is commitment. So it's commitment both to the profession and to yourself. So a commitment to having work that continues to be meaningful for you, a commitment to building support and connection and supervision into your work life, a commitment to looking at the big picture and trying to get yourself out of the sometimes very stressful details of your everyday work, and a commitment to asking for help and seeking the training and support that you need. It's also about challenge. You want to keep your work fresh, and you want to have some challenge in your work, but the right amount of challenge, not overcommitting yourself, and accepting that change and challenges are a regular part of your life and work. And then there's control. You need to have control over your work. You need to be able to set limits, to say no, to make realistic plans, and to be able to sit with strong feelings and not get overwhelmed by them. And then the last C is congruency. The place where you work and the culture of your agency needs to be congruent to match your values and your skills. And your view of yourself should be positive and confident so that so your clients can also feel positive and confident about you and your strengths and abilities. So this means that you have done your own work so that you can be these things to your clients. Now, it isn't just your responsibility alone to deal with burnout and overwhelmment and to come up with self-care strategies. Your agency or workplace should support you. You should have a reasonable workload, and this is sadly not often the case in human services. You should have adequate resources to do your job an office, a good environment, all the materials you need to do your job. Your organizational climate and culture should support self-care, should support asking for help, should support good supervision. It should, and it should provide you with adequate compensation, both financial compensation as well as the opportunity for professional growth and also the recognition for the work you do. And then finally, your workplace should support you as being a community um, where your mission is working together to help others. And so in this presentation, I've been talking about two of the tools that will help you on your ethical journey. One is the professional ethics codes that you need to learn and understand for your profession. And the second is a commitment to self-care that will help you to stay in the profession for a very long time and continue to help clients.